All right. Good day, good day, good day. So we're starting a little late.
Good day to you.
Jarrod is an idiot. Jarrod was in the taxi, I'm pretty sure. Jarrod, I'm sure
Yeah,
the taxi when I texted you.
I was just about getting ready to go to go home and do what I normally do, which is caress the carrot. But then you
reminded me your balls.
Yes, exactly.
Your tennis balls.
Tennis balls.
This is a G-rated show.
Not that fuzzy, but you do get the idea.
Yeah,
yes.
I'm Ian Reed. I have been in the ad industry for longer than 20 years, and it feels like forever. And you are Jarrod Butts.
I'm Jarrod Butts, and right about now I host a morning radio show called Platinum in the AM, but I used to work in advertising for close to a decade. And
you were in radio before, and then you became...
I was in radio before, and then I made the transition from radio to advertising, and then from advertising back to radio. But that's not important right now, which incidentally is the name of the show that we're doing. Yeah, we're talking about the whys and wherefores of advertising and some of the episodes that we've had, triumphs and tragedies in both cases. So yes, we know what we're about, what we're talking about, or at least we'd like to think that we know what we're talking about. But again, that's not important right now.
That's not important.
But then you might want to listen. You might learn something.
Yeah, that also comes into, we want to thank all our new followers. We want to thank those people who listen to us regularly.
Wait a minute, there are people who actually listen to us?
Yeah, we have quite a few people. The stats could be a little bit. That's why we're changing the format slightly, a little bit. We're being less educational. You know, I think one of the things that we like Jason's contribution last episode. If you haven't heard it, go and listen to episode 4, the one about Indian immigration. That's what it turned out to be.
And how successful it turned out to be.
A really screwed up story about how his great grandfather wanted pork. I mean, oh God.
Hey, listen. The love of pork and the love of women can make men do really strange things. So yeah, we know.
So we don't want to be all very, stodgy and what's the word? We don't want to be talking about
stodgy, sclerotic,
we don't want to be
stick
like,
in the mud.
We don't want to be like people follow us to learn stuff. Yeah. Yes, you learn some stuff. Yes,
you can learn some stuff.
You get some insights, but we really are not. It's kind of a cut above rum shop talk. Now, for those of you who don't know what rum shop talk is what do you call it? Pub hanging out. It's just hanging out in the pub, talking smack, talking crap. Rum shop talk is literally being drunk and talking rubbish, and is just random stream of consciousness at some point in time.
It's kind of like drunk history.
Yeah, so you tell jokes and you tell stories and you say, remember when this man do this and that kind of stuff. Now we do that, we do a fair amount of that, but we're not concentrating on that. It's kind of a what we want to do eventually is we really want to write some of these stories down. So I always encourage people to contribute. If you have a story, a funny story that you want us to let us know about, by all means, get in touch with me, get in touch with Jarrod. My email address is ian@redesigns.pro. Send me an email.
And my email address is jarrodricardo@gmail.com.
Right. If you want to just say, hey, I got a funny story, if we could change the names and the company, this would sound really funny on your next show. Or we could pull. Eventually, what I'd like to do is just take these things and transcribe them and make a blog out of them. But that's not important right now.
No, right now, yes. What is important is that we talk about our experiences in the aforementioned ad agencies.
Yeah. Now, what we try to do is we try to get some guests on to talk about their stories. But our guest that we were planning to have for this session, unfortunately, she's extremely busy. So we just want to shout out to Lizelle Ramsundar, who was a co-worker of mine at the agency. She sat with me in the cubicle during the cubicle days.
Those are the days, man.
But it's interesting that how the progression of things were. If we talk about mid-century advertising, because we know you and I are kind of passionate about what the advertising was in the mid-century.
The mid-century was, some people would argue that was the golden age of advertising.
Right. In those days, you sat in what they call a bullpen, which is basically an open plan kind of business where the creative director and the executives had their own offices, but all the junior people just sat in these open space with like secretaries, and it was a kind of a strange. You don't have dogs today, Jarrod. You have co-workers because you're in the studio today.
Yes, we have co-workers. Sometimes we have to compete with the co-workers and what they're saying, but pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, so to speak. So we're just going to see if we can find.
I have dumb birds. These birds wake me up at 5 a.m. They're building a nest.
Really?
Up in my rafters here, so they come in.
Yeah.
So screw you, birds. Right.
So you're competing with members of the Avian Society. I understand.
The Avian Society. So
the Avian Society.
In the 80s, agencies changed format, and what happened was they got part of the new way of doing because of technology, computers, and so on. You moved into what they call the office space territory, where in the 80s, 90s, people worked in cubicles with walls. So it was a semi change between being in an office and being in an open plan area. It's a kind of hybrid. And that became the death of many, and that's what started the Dilbert generation, where people who were working in these cubicles had these stories about working in these kind of conditions where you were not actually private, but you were still kind of private. It is very, very strange. And I remember as a child growing up, going into my father's office and seeing all these cubicles and really trying to understand that there's no roof to this shed. It looks like a shed with no roof. It's just very weird.
Right.
But as we moved into the millennium, cubicles no longer became the mode. And when we were working together, we had moved from that kind of cubicle business to this kind of open plan thing. You remember the giant open plan?
I do remember that. Quite well.
And the creative director had his own glassed wall office.
Yes.
And we were in this giant area. And it was awesome, but at the same time, it was very weird. When you look back on it, I don't ever recall ever being in a situation I don't think I'll ever be in a situation like that ever again. Now that we got COVID and so on, it was, I mean, anybody who worked with us would remember we had these little clusters of desks that were not even cubicles anymore. They were
they were not cubicles, not in the strictest sense of the word.
Yeah, so, and this cavernous space, it was like a big giant space, like almost like a small.
It was quite intimidating at one point, yeah.
Yeah, and it was exciting, but at the same time, very, very, very daunting. And now that I think back on it, I would think, I don't know if I would ever feel comfortable working in a space like that, But I want to move now that we talk about that, when I remember our first ever interaction together was when I was sitting, so we were sitting in a cubicle in the corner. Now, to just situate how this thing worked was, I had literally been on every single cubicle inside of that creative department at the agency at that time. And I had started out where you were working. I had started there at my first day. I had replaced an artist who had left. I think he had left the week before, and they brought me in. And I sat down at his workstation. And that was where I stayed for about 5 years. This is 99 to about 2002.
2004.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I moved. And eventually, because of computer issues, I moved back to a space that had originally been taken by a copywriter. It was David. David now lives in England, and David's having an awesome time being a teacher, teaching drama in England. So we just want to shout out to David.
Hey, David.
Hi, David. You don't know David. I don't think you ever met David. White guy.
No, I don't think I ever met him. No.
You'd love David. David is awesome. But David had sat in that corner, and I ended up taking that spot because my computer that they had given me wasn't working. I had to work on this shit computer in this corner. And and suddenly they just dropped. Now, I had known you from before when we went to school before, so I had known that you were working in the other agency. And just all of a sudden you were sitting in this corner. I'm like, oh, geez, I have the madman.
Was I that much of a crazy person? I mean, come on. I mean, God knows I had my.
I remember you at the other agency I'd worked for. You were sitting in the foyer and you were talking to yourself. And I'm like,
That's true.
I know the individual, but I didn't know when you're talking to yourself and you're answering yourself. I thought, okay, you finally got off the deep end.
Oh, you thought I was 100% certifiable.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I hadn't seen you since then. So that was about 5-6 years. I hadn't seen you for more than that. 7 years. I hadn't seen you since then. When did you start at the agency? When did you start with me?
I've worked at a couple of agencies before. I think I got my feet wet back in 2001, actually, when I was working at this agency. I started working at this agency, and I think I was there for about a week. I was there for a week. No, I'm being very serious. I was there for a week. And
I remind you a story. Remind me to tell you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And when I started cutting my teeth, as it were, there, I was still trying to figure out what my place was, and then I got a call from one of my colleagues saying, hey, there's an opening at a radio station. You should go there. And I left because that was all I knew. And as time went on, I think this was in 2004, I was asked to join up with a particular agency. And I was hesitant at first. And then I said, oh, what the hell? Maybe this will give me something. I've always wanted to try something new. And I had gotten just a little bit tired of the politics in radio. Little did I know that advertising, oh boy, little did I know that. I mean, I've always said it's better to work with the devil you know than the devil you don't. Mm-hmm. And I can manage. But
you'd never say that you didn't get something out of it. I mean,
no. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't wasted at all. Yeah. I learned a lot. From advertising. I have nothing but utmost respect for those who are committed to working in that field, and I learned so much. But the first agency I worked at was in 2004, September of 2004, and I'll never forget my first day. I was given a task to do. It was a print job, as I remember, and I think for like about 2 to 3 hours, I just sat there staring at the brief, doing absolutely nothing. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, you've done it this time. This time you've gotten yourself into a hole and you can't get the hell out of it. What are you going to do? And I don't know what it was that kind of something just took over, some sort of unknown life force just grabbed a hold of me and said, you're going to do this, whether you want to or not. Mm-hmm. And I came up with some words for the ad, and I was amazed at how quickly it was approved. Now, my first employer, I have to say, his exterior was extremely crusty, and he was a hard ass. But the thing about it is, there was a softer side to him, believe it or not. And I saw that a lot with him. And he was very patient with me. Sometimes I was excused. Sometimes I was excused wrathfully because I was not aware of how certain things worked. Mm-hmm. And I remember there was a time when I was liaising with the then senior writer / creative director. And he kind of steered me in the direction that I wanted to go. So, if it hadn't been for him, I think
he was a local guy or he was a foreign guy?
He was a local dude. Okay. And I was just, and I had to tell you, I was extremely intimidated by where I was, because I had no idea, I had no knowledge of advertising beyond voicing radio scripts, and copy and so on. I had no idea. And the dreaded ad clock routine where you had to punch in your time, and you had to do this, and you had to do that. You had to stay by the rules.
Yeah.
But and that was something. But when you were given stuff to do, and I'll never forget, there was a time when I was working on a particular, it was an advertorial, and my employer, being his usual crusty J. Jonah Jameson self, said, "You're going to do this. You can do this now. If you don't do it, you're going to spend the entire night doing it. If you don't get it right." I just looked at him and I said,
"I'll go home and you'll be here."
Yeah, you know. I just thought, okay, you know what? Just zone out and concentrate on the task at hand. Just stay focused. And I was focused. And I submitted the copy to him. And he was amazed because he didn't think I could do it. And I think after that, things had changed for the better. And but the thing about it is, I really wanted to get back into radio, because I just thought this advertising thing just wasn't for me. And so I left that agency in 2005, went back to radio. And then I think in that transition period, a creative director from another agency, and you know which agency I'm talking about, the agency where you used to work, he asked me to get, would you like to get back into advertising? And I said, not really, not right now. I just want to get back into radio and detox for a while. And he said, well, I'm going to call you again. I said, I think, yeah, sure you will. And in 2007, in early 2007, he called and he asked me if I was interested. And I really didn't want to go, but then I was talking to my girlfriend at the time. And I said, do I really have to do this? And she said, look, this has got to be the break you're looking for. This could be it for you. I mean, this is the leading agency in the country. And at that time, it was a leading agency in the country. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you'd be a fool not to go for this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, fine. So I talked to the guy and I said, all right, sure, I'm in. And that was in January 2007. In March 2007, I officially joined. And the first day I was there mirrored exactly what happened the first day I was at the other agency, sitting there, staring at a brief, doing absolutely nothing times 5. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, what have I done? I should have stayed in radio. I said, no, hold on. And then there was another part of me saying, okay, check this out. If in 3 months you find that it still sucks, get the hell out. Mm-hmm. And as it turned out, I was there for 8.5 years. Yeah. Now I had now, don't get me wrong, I had some really great moments. I mean, I felt there were some moments I just felt, yeah, I'm pretty damn good at what I do. Yeah. But then sometimes doubt creeps in, and that is brought on by your own personal feelings of inadequacy. And it did not help matters when you had people who were there in positions of authority who, and the thing about it is, when I started working there, I was kind of naive in that I didn't really pick up on it. Yeah. But then I started to hear stories of how those who were there before me, how they felt and how they were talked to. And they had gotten so fed up of the structure of how the politics unfolded on a regular basis, and how they felt that they were singled out for whatever reason. And I remember a particular individual who was just there, and she's a brilliant artist, by the way. Mm-hmm. And she's amazing in every sense of the word. Beautiful human being, beautiful soul, beautiful in every sense of the word. Mm-hmm. And she just left. Mm-hmm. I mean, she didn't offer any sort of notice. She just left because it started to get to her. The levels of toxicity there were just went right through the ceiling for her.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, okay, this is a warning. This to me was a warning, because it wasn't just her. It was other, there were others as well. And these individuals, let me tell you, these individuals are just more than competent. I mean, they are talented. These are gifted individuals. So good, not just in terms of the writing, but in terms of what they did with the artwork and everything. Yeah. But that first year was looking back on it now with hindsight, that was a warning for me.
Yeah.
And like I said before, I learned a lot from working there.
Mm-hmm.
What I could not understand.
Put up with a lot of stuff.
We had to put up with a lot of stuff. You and I had to put up with a lot of stuff.
I think just to kind of, I think knowing you as who you are now and when you were before, I think you went through the fire. I think where you are now, not even just professionally but personally, I think a lot of the beating, and you did get beatings. We all got the beating.
Yeah, we all got it. Yeah. Not in the literal sense, mind you, but the metaphorically.
Not just wanting to be serious for the young ones listening to us, that you come out of it stronger. You may reach that period where I have just what you said there. The toxicity is so high that it literally puts you in the mental space that you want to commit suicide. And we've heard it before. We've seen it before. It has happened before. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the times you come out of it. And you look back on it and you laugh at it. But if you look at it and you say, I can deal with what I'm dealing with now a lot better because of what I went through. And I think that where you are now, I mean, things, you wish things would change. Some things change, but some things remain the same. And this is what we're trying to have through. But you're going to say something else. I interrupted you. Sorry.
No, I mean, I think, and this is where they wage a kind of psychological warfare. One of my pet peeves was that if you were finished with the job, if you were finished with the stuff that you did, you could go home. Because my policy, my personal policy was, if you're doing a job and you've done it and you've completed it, what the hell are you staying around for? Because again, back then the powers that be fell, but if you didn't stay beyond 4:30, if you stayed like about 5 o'clock, 7 o'clock, or 8 o'clock at night, sometimes 10 or 11 o'clock at night, you unless you did that, you weren't doing your job. Mm-hmm. And I always made it a point to finish it, and I always did the stuff efficiently and very quickly. Mm-hmm. And people were wondering, well, how is it that you can write these radio scripts so quickly? I said, because I work in radio, and radio is the kind of medium that demands immediacy. Yeah. So that's why I did what I did. Yeah. But something had happened along the line where, some people are a bit too exacting and a bit too, they had this sort of this micro management ideal that they were wedded to. And I did not agree to that. And there was a time when, no matter what, we're creatives, yes, but we're also human. Mm-hmm. And there are times when you've got to look at something that deadlines notwithstanding, you need to look at something and just say, I can't deal with this today. I cannot deal with this today. Yeah. And it doesn't help matters, again, when you have that particular individual breathing down your neck. So I just got up and left. Yeah. This was about, I think, this was like about 11 years ago. Yeah. The next day, and it was a Thursday, I'll never forget it, he cornered me in his office and he asked me if I wanted to continue working there. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you got up and you just walked out. I said, yes, because I could not deal with it at the time and I am going to deal with it now. Yeah. And then he said, if you don't want to do this anymore, I can think of 1,000 other qualified individuals who can do the job. Yeah. Yeah. So if you want to leave, you can leave. That's what he told me. And for dramatic effect, he goes into his desk And he comes up with a stack of papers saying that these are applications from people who want to be a part of this organization. Mm-hmm. And apparently, if I didn't want to be a part of this organization, mm-hmm. never mind the fact that earlier on, a couple of months before, I had won awards for this agency. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I had written one for television, one for radio, best in show. Never mind that at all. That meant nothing to him.
Yeah.
But for just that moment, of there was no compassion, there was no humanity in him.
Yeah.
And from that moment on, my opinion of him had changed dramatically. Yeah. And it has remained that way for a long time. Now, let me hasten to add, I still respect the individual to a certain degree, but I don't have him on a pedestal like I did before.
Yeah.
My opinion of him has changed. And that does something to you. And another thing too, if you stand up, if you say something, and if you stand up and you speak out, you become a marked man.
Yeah.
Or woman.
Yeah. You can't be in an organization that has a culture and try to buck the system. I mean, okay, mm-hmm. So here's the flip side of this. If you want to be the rebel, you've got to be the rebel within a certain clique. First of all, you need to have backup. You can't just do this by yourself. Also, you need, as you rightly said, you've won awards and so on, but you need to be, and I go back to the Mad Men reference, you need to be so hot shit, so good, that they can't ignore you. And this is the thing, they can't sideline you or get rid of you if you know that you are doing some of the best work. And this is always the thing that people don't seem to understand when you work in an ad agency. If the client is happy with you, the individual, you are the star. If the client doesn't see you in a meeting or presentation, they get worried and they start saying, no, because the formula is working and the things are working and things are good and they want you there. There are other people in there who say, oh no, we can't have this. We can't have this man, because the nature of a management and agency is somebody, and this is mostly account executives go on that level, is that they get so wrapped up with the client that the client says, listen, I want you to handle my business. I can't pay the agency anymore. You come with me and let's go and form our own agency, which has happened. Mm-hmm. The number one fear for all these people up on the high top is that they're afraid that you will then take their client and go. That's the number one priority fear, that you will take your client and go. So you come from that position of strength, and a lot of people have done it. I've known a lot of people who have disappeared for days, who have done absolute rubbish, cost the agency millions, and are still working there because of the relationship because of the niche that they've inserted themselves into, and they can't move from there. But I don't want to get too wrapped up in details of something like this. But what I want to do is, you just want to come back to. I want to come back to the first day that you were at the agency. As I remember, you had no idea.
I had no idea what was going on.
You had no idea what you're doing, and I remember that because you wanted to cry because they put you on this computer that was like at that time a decade old. That computer was a decade old. Everybody knows this.
It must have been. It was, as I recall, it was an iMac, if memory serves me right.
It was a decade old, and
it's a 1998 iMac. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so I'm gonna have to show you how to do this. And I remember showing you how to do it, and I remember saying, I'm glad that you're working with us because I know you're a fun guy and whatever, and I like working with fun people. I was just kind of worried that you might just flip out because I didn't know what mental condition you were in.
Oh, listen, I was this close to collapsing into a heap of tears. I kid you not. I was thinking, oh, no.
I think it was universal. I think it was something in the universe that kind of put us together. And then we ended up working together on a lot of projects. And
we did. And we had a lot of fun too. And we had a lot of fun, I have to say.
I'm trying to remember I'm trying to remember I just had a story in my head of
Do you remember? Okay, let me tell you a story. You remember the time, right, when we were doing something for Nestle,
uh-huh.
and I think this involved, I think, 2 to 3 days. We started Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. No, we started Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Culminated on Thursday, and we went to the headquarters in we were not far from where we worked, and we were just talking and learning about the logistics, what people like, how motivated they are to purchase the brand. And it's a huge company. It's not just, of course, milk. It's not just milk products, but other things too. The derivatives of such, coffee, colas, whatever it is, soft drinks, that kind of thing. And there was this particular lady. I don't think we should mention her name, but she was from the DR. Beautiful woman. And we were just, I think we were more in awe of her than in what she had to say. And, because we're guys. I mean, we were not really thinking about, it's kind of hard for us to do stuff like that. But we were professionals.
Absolutely.
And we had to focus on what it was on the task at hand, which is what we did because we're professionals. We're supposed to be. We're supposed to be better than that. But she was very affectionate to us, and I think that was one of the more pleasant experiences I think I had, because I think she caught on that we were, that we developed instant crushes on her at that time. So yeah, that was she. But she too was a dream to work with. And that was one of the good things about working in an ad agency, in that you had more positive interactions as opposed to negative interactions with people.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'll always remember.
Right. I remember this story now. We're talking about like first days. Okay, so I had.
But the first day, it was scary. It was scary.
It always is, but
it always is.
Yes. Laugh at, I don't know if I ever told you this story. I'm pretty sure you've.
Tell me. I'm curious.
So, I had just come back from studying in London. I had gone and done an intensive graphic design course to kind of get me back up to speed and basically bring my what's the word? Bring my confidence back up. It was basically a confidence booster. And I went away just to get out of the country. And then what I did was I sent out a lot of applications because I wanted to come back to TNT, work a little bit, and I had a girlfriend at the time. So obviously I wanted to come back to my girlfriend. That was a whole other story. Hi, Amanda. If you're listening to this, yes, and the thing is, Amanda now lives in London with her husband and her kids. So it's weird.
Oh man!
I had come back to Trinidad and I got this interview. I got an interview with the second largest agency. I got an interview with Hernandez FCB, which doesn't exist anymore. They got closed down. So I could say the name now.
I can tell you a story about Hernandez FCB, but go on.
Hold on. So the Hernandez FCB interview is a whole other story in itself. But
yeah,
I also got an interview at the agency we worked with. And I went to that interview. I was interviewed by a very nice guy from Manchester. And I didn't know at the time that they had also interviewed him for the creative director's job. So he actually wasn't the creative. Okay, so we had a creative director at the time who's Canadian. High-strung, extremely gay, but an extremely, psycho. He was crazy. He was weird. But on his vacation, they brought this guy in from Manchester and put him as the creative director for about a month. And I didn't know this. And you see how these things work. It's very funny how they work these things. Because they were planning to get rid of this other creative director. At least this is the story I was told. And they were kind of testing this man out. And this guy was really nice. He was really cool. I loved him. And I hope, I don't know if anybody listening knows whatever happened to Mr. Guy Hooper. The Guy Hooper was this awesome, awesome guy. And he taught me a lot while he was there about, doing layouts and dealing with clients. He told me a lot of fun stories about working in ad agencies in the 80s and so on. But they brought Guy Hooper in, and he interviewed me with another one of the so-called associate creative directors. And I had a fun interview. It was really great. They liked my portfolio, and they said, you know what? Why don't you come in for a couple of days and just sit down and we'll test you out. We'll give you some things to do. Like an internship. I said, great. That sounds cool. So I went and I sat down in this office. Now the office. The office has a big glass window. It's obviously a director's office, but I didn't know at the time. I thought this was just like a conference room office because I had a big desk. And I'm sitting down there, and people are peeking in from the side of the door because I had not met anybody in this place yet. They had just sat me down in this office. And people are peeking in this door and going, hey, hi, how are you? I'm like, I'm great, thanks. And I'm working at the desk, like, I'm doing stuff they give me to do. I'm drawing or whatever. And people are tiptoeing around the office, and nobody's coming.
Really? Wow.
So eventually, there's this guy sitting down just outside that office. So I go and I say, hi, my name is Ian. What's yours? And he's like, my name is Frank. I'm like, hello, Frank. I'm Ian. I'm people are coming into the office, and I don't know if you remember Anuradha Lakan. I don't know if you know Anuradha Lakan.
Oh no, I don't think I remember that guy at all.
No, girl. Anu is a songwriter. She was freelancing for the agency at the time. She had come in a day and saw me there because I had known her from before, and she's like, Ian, what are you doing here? And eventually, well, I'm just waiting for them to, tell me if, I got the job or whatever. She's like, why nobody wants to talk to you? I'm like, why? She's like, they've all been told that you're the new creative director and they don't want to talk to you.
Oh my God.
I said, who told him? He's like, this guy. And I said, I don't want to use the guy's name. I said, this guy. I'm like, you mean Frank? He's like, that's not his name. His name is not Frank. I'm like, holy crap. Frank is out to be my boss eventually, right?
Yes.
Frank. And that should have raised red flags with me all those years ago. This is 1999. That should have raised red flags because he had this wicked prankster streak that he used to play pranks. And in the beginning, that was all fun and games. But when you got into a position, as you said, when you get into a position of power, it no longer becomes funny because he's now doing it as, a weapon. He's made it into a weapon. So in the beginning, it was all fun and games when he used to play these little pranks. But,
right.
When you reach that level, you got, so everybody knows who I'm talking about now. But what I'm saying is, eventually, he and I started working very, very closely together, and we started doing a lot of good work together. But as you mentioned, the minute he got, you see, what happens is, and it would happen to me, it would happen to you, is that if you're not prepared for the sudden shift in your responsibilities, so you no longer have to worry about somebody else making decisions, you know how to make the decisions. You kind of put into the position where, oh crap, I have to go and start making decisions for people. I also have to start making decisions of whether people stay here or leave. You see, and it kind of puts you in that mode of middle management, which I've spoken to before on episode 1. So you could go and listen to the episode 1, where I talked about where I ended up in that situation of middle management, where you either decide that, look, I'm going to be a complete asshole, or I'm going to try not to be an asshole and piss off management and try to be a middle ground. And it's very, very difficult. It's very hard. And
I can only imagine.
This is just not advertising. This is working world overall. When you're stuck between the boss telling you you need to get production up X, and the people below telling you, yeah, well, I have a funeral to go to, so I go on. I'm not seeing you till next week. He's like, well, who am I going to get to do? So you have to be some parts asshole. I understand that. And you have to be some parts understanding. But there are people above you who do not care. And the chain keeps going up. They do not care about you. They do not care about
which is true. And I've always felt that that has always been the prevailing culture at that particular agency. It's been that way for some time now, but it wasn't always like that. It wasn't always like that at all.
Basic things change and times change. And right now, as it stands, the agencies are teetering on the brink. They're teetering on the brink, at least locally, because because it's a situation of, now people would say, what are you talking about? You're talking rubbish. You're teetering on the brink. And I can tell you that because I am seeing it, okay? Clients, and this has been happening for a decade now, clients have been asking for more for less. So you're going on Fiverr and you're trying to find a man on Fiverr to do your stuff for $5 and he's doing crap. And the client say, no, I want the level you were giving me in the 90s and the millennium, that award-winning level for the Fiverr level P. And you can't do it. You can't do it.
That used to bug me though. That used to bug me.
Can't do it.
Everybody, I'm sorry. I just have to say this. I need to get this off my chest. When somebody tells you, look, the work that you're doing, it has to be award winning. I said, don't you think it better be a good ad first?
Yeah. What's award winning? Shouldn't it be?
What's award winning? I mean, what do you define as award? It's got to be good. Let it be good first, then we can think about whether it's going to win an award or not. Yeah. And that kind of mindset, that breeding of that level of toxicity, of toxic competitiveness is something that I could never abide by. But please, I'm sorry, go on. What you were saying.
Well, what I'm going to say now, I'm going to kind of shift gears a little bit. What I'm going to talk about now is, what are the expectations of an employee? So I always tell the students at Costat when I teach them, when they ask, how to get a job. How to get a job at their big. So first of all, everybody wanted to go and work for the big agency because they figured to get big money. It doesn't work like that anymore. And I tell them now. So the whole thing has changed. You forget big agency. Get a job. Sorry, it sounds bad, but we have reached a stage now where the competition is so fierce in the creative industry, and you now have computers doing it. I've been looking at a lot of the. I was looking at some websites where they now have AI writing copy now for websites. So,
oh my goodness.
So and it's very expensive to pay for it now, but you can do it. You can do it. You can get an AI to basically write a blog, and it will be indistinguishable for somebody writing it. But that's not important right now. What I'm coming back to is you are invested in by the company. So the company takes a look at you, says, yes, okay, here's some criteria. You are creative. You come up with great ideas very fast, and you can work under pressure. Well, we don't know yet, but we could kind of see based on your experience or whether or not you just came through university and you stayed up until 3 a.m. doing a project. That's the kind of thing we like, because as you said before, they like you working till 3 a.m.
Yeah.
I ain't doing them thing again. They're not doing them thing again, right? The 3 a.m. thing is a waste of time unless you're paying me $1 million. Because again, you are asking for that level of work, for that level of pay. You can't ask for that anymore. If you're trying to penny pinch, then you can't ask you to work from 6 p.m. to 1 in the morning, right? You have to pay for that. But anyway, what I'm telling prospective people who are coming out of university or COSAT or whatever it is, that the companies still look for you as the investment. You are money that they are going to be spending. I'm going to be paying you X amount of money. This is what I want from you. And I always tell people, find out what they want from you. If it's nebulous, if it's, we want you to be very creative and do award-winning work and have a fun time, that's bullshit. That's not what you sit down and, if you're in an interview, say, what do you expect me to do during the day? Am I an artist? Am I a janitor? Am I a secretary to the creative director? What is my job role? And if they come with you at a paper and says, this is what we want you to do, then you say, okay, this is what I asked by, this is what I want to be paid for. And if they say, no, well, that's too high, or yeah, that sounds great, or whatever, you are working from a position of negotiating. So you get the job, you're in the job, and the boss is behaving like a dick. Now, your first reaction may be, well, he's just a dick. Come from the position of he is in the same role as you. They've invested in him to get you to do the work. You following? So you have to kind of try to, if you're not a team player and you're not one who likes to work with other people, then don't go and work in any company. That's just how it is. But if you can do the work and you can work with other people, you can deal with the politics, and yes, there's a certain amount of toxicity, you have to deal with that. If you were dealing with that and you want to deal with that, by all means, this is what you've got yourself into. Work with it, do with it, but these days, no one ever expects to stay in a job for longer than 5 years. I think me being in a job and you being in a job for more than 5 years is no longer the norm. That's the exception. I don't see anybody working for those long period of long times anymore. You understand what I'm saying? But again, coming back to the, I'm trying to remember. Okay, yeah. So this guy, one of the guys I worked with at another agency, he told me, he said, I want you to relay this story. I said, well, why didn't you come on? And he's like, no, I'm shy. I don't want to come on. I want it to be anonymous. So I'm like, okay, cool. So this company we worked for, from the first day I was there, I knew that they had cameras in the creative department. And again, coming back to the investment aspect of the situation, right? The investment aspect of this situation is that I, as the boss, am spending money to hire you to do the job. I kind of have to make sure that you're doing the job. So there are agencies now that put cameras, and they also put software on laptops that track your time. You know, when you talk about the dreaded time sheets, well, they don't do that anymore. They track the time that you're working on the computer. And it's very invasive. It's very invasive. But unless you know that that's happening to you and you sign a waiver saying you're okay with somebody taking a look at you and watching you on a camera, you have to be very clear that that's what you want to get yourself involved in. No one told me that I was on camera. I saw it for myself. I didn't say anything. I wanted to see if they'll come and tell me anything. They never did. So that was only the first thing. So I always had to be careful. Now, I used to come to work on time. I used to leave late. There were no problems with those kind of things. But then I heard later on that this guy who I was working with, he was told that they were recording conversations. Now, whether that's correct or not, I don't know. But I wouldn't put it past those people to be recording the employees' conversations. So that's even more invasive. So I don't know what the law is. Maybe somebody in the legal profession could answer this. I signed a no contract. He signed a no contract to be recorded. It's invasive. Now, when we were at the big agency together, when we were at the, we had to sign a policy document. Do you remember signing the policy document? You know, if you use the email on our systems, if you use the web browser, if you use those things,
right.
we're liable to be monitored. You remember?
This is true.
Right.
This is true. If we made the fatal mistake of surfing, shall we say, unquestionable and irrelevant material? Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Right. So the thing about it is, I remember the IT man coming and asking me what we needed Facebook for. Those are the days when we now started Facebook. The company want to block Facebook. I said, oh, you want to block Facebook? Well, I might as well quit my job. He's like, but why? Oh, wait, after you do the accent, why you're going to quit your job when you don't use Facebook? I'm like, because this is our business now. Our business is Facebook.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
coming back to that company. The thing is that you can take micromanaging to a level that is beyond healthy. And watching people with a camera observing them with a computer so that you could see what they're doing and noting. I've heard of a certain company where the guy notes when the person goes to take a pee. And he writes it down. He said, you went to 4 times. Why did you go to? I mean, that level, I've heard of those levels. And I'm like, I will not work for a company like that. Because I'm in a creative situation. I get most of my ideas and I go and take a pee or to go and take a dump.
But that's just it. I mean, you see, the creative process is a multifaceted, that's just a multifaceted thing. You cannot just say to yourself, well, I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to be creative, because that's just not how it works. That's like getting blood out of a stone.
Right. So when they tell you, how long did you spend on this project, or how long will you spend on this project, you're kind of like, well, how long does creativity take to go? You see, it's very difficult to quantify. There are people saying, well, how much do you charge for your time? I'm like, well, I do an hourly rate because it usually takes me a couple of hours to actually come up with the idea. So I just charge a rate based on how many hours I spend. But that doesn't work all the time. Because when you're brainstorming, like when we were working for the bank, and they had us in there until 1 o'clock in the morning for the presentation the next day, coming up with keywords for the presentation, for the digital. We're brainstorming keywords. I mean, how do you quantify that? How does the agency charge the client? Well, the creators spend 12 hours coming up with keywords. No company is going to pay 5 people to sit down in a room for 12 hours. That's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, and it's also not just a draining of the resources, but it's also a strain when it comes to the human factor trying to expend so much creative energy. That's just not going to happen.
You're absorbing a lot of what they call resources when you do these things, and you're not charging back the client for that, because the client is never going to pay you for that. The client is paying for the end product. The client says, okay, I approve this, which is always the problem when it came to pitches. When it came to pitches, pitching always was, you're investing time and money and resources in a gamble. You were gambling of whether you would get the job or not. And we always used to know, you remember us doing the lotto pitches?
I do remember that. I remember that well. I mean, we
pitched lotto, and never got lotto.
And its derivatives from that particular entity. Yes, I do remember that. I do remember it. It was something that we.
I remember going to the presentation once with the then mayor for the Spain.
Yes.
Louis Singh.
Yes, Louis Lee Singh. I remember that quite well.
I remember we had presented. It was a whole set of them sitting on this U-shaped table. Picture. We're in this room. It's a conference room. It's a U-shaped table.
And it was an aquarium, as I recall, nearby. I don't know why that just
remember. Yeah, there was that's right. I remember that. And he sat on a table in the middle of this U-shaped thing. I wouldn't call it like El Rey. It's not the El Rey situation, but it's definitely El Jefe, the El Jefe. And he sat down there and he was just writing notes as we were presenting. And he's writing. And we all went around the table and we did discussions and talked about this, that, and the other. And I was there for digital. And I was talking about you need a website and you need social media and you need an app and all these kind of things. And then silence reigned. And then the head account executive, I mean, he's a friend of ours. He's a great guy, whatever. And he says, all right, well, I think that's it. So thank you very much for your time. The LKFA said, so the LKFA then said, no, you do not dismiss yourself. I dismiss you. So I'm not ready to dismiss you.
Yeah,
let's go through this and let me ask questions. And we went through for another hour again about this. I mean, he did ask good questions. Don't get me wrong. He was very, very clear about what he wanted.
He was very thorough about what he wanted. And I remember as well that honorable mention, out of all the people who were there, he singled out a particular individual who shall remain nameless, as if she did all the work. when in reality,
yes,
you remember?
yes. You know
She did all
why?
as if she,
You know
and she didn't want to
why?
be a part of that. And the ironic thing about it is she did not want to be a part of this because it went against her religious teachings and upbringing. And we were just stunned because we were thinking, hey, it wasn't just her. Her input was minimal at best, but we were there. We sat through the focus groups and the meetings and what it was that people wanted, how to improve on the games and the game, everything. We were there. We did everything, and it just stung. I mean, we didn't exactly vocalize it. We couldn't, but at the same time, it was just something that really it made our teeth itch. To put it mildly.
And she wasn't happy with that at all.
She wasn't happy about it. She wasn't happy about it either. Mind you, she wasn't happy about it either because that was something.
It was just more than singling out. It was designed to do a certain thing, and we talk about. I mean, I don't want to go into those kind of details. I don't want to be. I certainly don't want to be involved in any kind of lawsuit. So we'll leave it there. But I mean,
we'll leave it there.
When it comes to pitches, generally, and especially in advertising in those days, especially in the 90s, it's very male-oriented. Very, very male-oriented. And that has changed. That has changed a lot. So we no longer have those kind of things anymore. Women have come back and women have done what they need to do to really stand up and say, we're not taking this shit anymore. And I'm very happy. And the individual we're talking about, I'm very happy because she's in a position now where she's doing really, really well. So, I mean, there's all water under the bridge now. Those things happen.
Yeah.
Those things, But again, I mean, we've talked very long. I think we've gone over our time here. But
we've gone over our time? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What I want to do now is I just wanted to just roll back a little bit into working. The agency's stories will continue. I mean, we will do more talking about us working. There was one of the other things I want to talk about probably next week. We talk about the Christmas parties.
The Christmas parties were legendary, my friend.
The Christmas parties, I think we should just give a little teaser of what we next time. I want to bring somebody who's into. I think this would be a good one for Ronald. The Christmas parties is a good one for Ronald. Ronald has always been the center of the Christmas parties. Either that or we get somebody else who used to work with with us.
I could tell you about a Christmas party that happened at Hernandez FCB back in the early 90s. That was just to cut a long story short. I went there to pick up a check because I'd voiced a radio ad for that. I went to pick up a check, and before long, I was just dragged into the vortex of the party itself. And I didn't leave there for like about 2 hours.
That's good.
Because,
that's good.
And I mean, there were clients talking to me. We were laughing, joking and everything. And it was just a pleasant and altogether pleasant vibe. And I think that was something that I don't think it's ever going to be replicated again because it was such a wonderful moment. And
even before COVID,
oh, come on, you're talking about 1993 for Christ's sakes. That was
what I'm saying is even before COVID, in the last 5 years, Christmas parties have had to been toned down because of cost. You no longer had. You see, you used to throw these parties for the clients, and they used to be big, almost big fetes. You see,
they were.
Because
pretty much.
Because what you wanted to do is you wanted to outdo it. It became a joke eventually of who could outdo who for their Christmas parties. You see, and who was be able to crash whose party and Marco whose clients had what, and it was all fun and games. I mean, we could talk about that next time. But the thing is, we want to bring somebody like Ronald, who Ronald is always the center of the party. At least he has a lot of stories to tell.
Oh yeah, he was always at the eye. He was always at the eye of the fun story.
One of the parties we remembered was we had a coworker who disappeared, and he was so plastered. I mean, he was young at the time. At the time he was this young guy. He was so plastered. He ended up at somebody else's apartment, and the joke was that somebody else had a crush on him. So,
Oh.
so he was the butt of the joke for a long time, and he took it in good measure because obviously nothing happened, But he was like, I am never drinking ever again at an agency Christmas party.
And this is why you should say no, kiddies. And this is why you should say no to alcohol, because you can have too much of a good thing.
Yeah, but like we said in the beginning, alcoholism and agency life are part and parcel.
And I think if you are a creative soul, you are susceptible to any kind of addiction, be it gambling, be it alcohol, be it sex, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So
but
what's
alcohol? What's
alcohol? Well, I mean, alcohol is a drink that you imbibe, and if taken in large quantities, it can result in visual impairment and impairment in general. But that's not important right now.
All right, well, thank you guys for listening. We went on a little bit too long. I have to probably maybe do some editing here.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do some editing.
But we want you all to continue to listen. We are gonna be coming every week. Please subscribe, share, all that kind of stuff. If you do want to get onto the show and relate a story for us, we try not to talk about specifics, but sometimes you can't help it. So if you want to tell a story and you want to provide some feedback, and or if you want to come on and buff us up and say, or you want to come and say, listen, I was not like that at the agency.
Exactly. You can do that. Yeah, we'll give you. Yeah,
we'll give you.
Go ahead.
We'll give you that space.
We'll give you that space.
We are not here to not tell one side of the story. In fact, I would like to bring in. I would love to bring in somebody with any management level. That's going to be very tricky because they can't just go and talk just like that. But maybe we could bring our friend who we just talked about on. And maybe she could talk about her experience as a woman working in an agency.
That would be interesting. I would like to hear that.
So if you're interested and you want to hear that, please let us know. Give us. We love the ideas. We love the suggestions. We want to shout out to our supporters, Stefan. We want to shout out to Romuald. We want to shout out to Tracy. We want to shout out all of these people. Please go and follow them. Romuald Castillo has his own radio studio. It's not radio studio. He has his own studio. He does voice talent training. What's the name? Just so I get it right.
Voice It Productions, I think it's called.
Voice It Productions or Voice TT. I want to get the
Voice It with the TT in at the end. Yeah.
Voice It TT Pro. Go and follow Romuald on Facebook.
There you go.
Instagram. Also want to shout out to your friend Malcolm.
Malcolm, yes.
And to all our friends, Malcolm, if you need any radio production and any other like talent hiring or all that, and DJing, I know DJing is zero now, but when things relax a little bit, please keep Malcolm Mingo. Malcolm Mingo is a great guy. He's going through some hard times right now because of what's COVID. But yeah, all of these people who support us and listen to us and don't write us and curse us for saying shit. We want to say thanks. And obviously, we want to try to get Lizelle, our friend Lizelle, to come and talk about her experience in the agency working as a creative in the agency. We talk a lot about writers. We don't talk a lot about the artists. Even
That's
though
true.
I'm an artist, we don't really talk about the artists.
We should talk about it.
There is one pitch. I want to talk about a pitch that we did, and I want to get all the people involved in the pitch to come and talk. That might be about 5 people to talk about the different experiences working on this pitch. And I even want to bring in the guy who was on the other side in client services, who used to work at the company at the time. I don't know if that's ever going to be possible, but again,
stranger things have happened.
We've gone on too long. People were like, "Oh, come on, I'm going to press pause." Now, we probably lost a lot of people halfway, but that's okay.
I think we have, yes.
That's not important right now.
No.
So, thank you, Jarrod.
Thank you, Ian.
Anything else you want to say?
No, just keep listening to us. And oh, by the way, you can follow me on Twitter, Jarrod Butts, one word. I will follow you back.
Right. Great. Later, everyone.
Later, people. Have a good one.